In this video, I'm going to go over not only how to make the most of your Diablo 4 beta experience, but also how you can use that to potentially set you up for further success when the game actually launches in June. And so here's my Diablo 4 beta checklist of my top 5 tips for whether you're a long-time Diablo fan and player like myself, or are still sort of on the fence about whether you want to play Diablo 4. So with that, starting from tip number 5, you want to make sure that you progress far enough in the beta to unlock the rewards that will actually carry over to the live game. Now these primarily are getting to level 20 to be able to not only unlock a title but also a so-called beta wolf pack, see what they did there, pun intended I suppose, cosmetic item, and then also to reach Kyovasha to unlock another title, which is the sort of central town hub of the Fractured Peaks, which is the zone that'll be available to play in the beta, and to reach there you should have to progress significantly into the campaign. Now you might already know this if you've been following social media and YouTube and whatnot, but just for a couple more complementary tips for this, the first is to, especially if you're more limited on your time and or you want to try out a lot of different specs and classes throughout the beta, because of how few days we have of the beta, it's about 6 days if we count both weekends, including early access. You definitely want to make sure that you have enough time and are committed enough to one character to hit level 20 and also reach Kyovasha, right? And so for that, what I would suggest is to definitely prioritize and start playing first the class that you think you'll be most likely to commit to and also want to try out the most, so to speak, say for example to prepare for launch. And do note that for the early access weekend, you'll actually only have access to 3 classes, the Rogue, Barbarian, and Sorcerer, whilst for the open beta weekend, which is the following weekend, we'll have access to all 5 classes. However, I also anticipate there could potentially be, say, server issues during the open beta, because that's sort of the purpose of the open beta, to open it up to everyone, to also, as Blizzard have actually explicitly stated, to stress test servers. So it actually might be wise to knock out the achievements to collect the rewards if you have early access during that first weekend. And plus, you also want to be sure to preload the game, which is downloading and installing it before the beta starts, and this should become available to us just a couple of days before the beta begins. And with that, on to tip number 4 really quick, and it's that the beta is a great chance to optimize and set up and figure out your settings, like your video settings and other UI options and whatnot, so that when the game actually comes out, you already have prepared for all this beforehand, right? And what's more is that you can even use this as a chance to determine optimal keybinds, try out different types of keybind setups, and even test out a keyboard versus using a controller, or if you're going to be playing with both like I am. And speaking of which, you can even test out your existing hardware and then optimize that further if needed based on some of the minimum system requirements that they've released, but also just your gameplay experience in general, depending on things like how much money you want to spend and what you want to optimize. And next, at number 3, we have not only trying out the classes, but also experimenting with different builds. And whether you're going to be like me and try to experiment with not only all the classes, but different specs for each, or rather you're going to be hyper focused on one specific class or a couple of classes and just try a lot of things to min-max, to really try to set yourself up to be one of the best at that class or a couple of classes. There's really a ton of different things you can try out during the beta, not just in preparation for the end game, but also the optimal skills to pick up while leveling up, because you can respec. Then you can also experiment with itemization and stats and secondary stats, and also things like legendary powers and legendary aspects, these aspects that you can obtain once per dungeon. So you can actually try out all the different dungeons that are available to collect the various legendary powers and experiment with those as well. And in case you're not familiar with this, with the legendary aspect, you can actually imbue them onto your items to test out the specific legendary power at the lowest roll. And another thing I really want to test out, especially with trying all the classes, is to actually find out what I like playing, right? Because I haven't actually decided on a main just yet. And one of the key ways to do so is to not only, try out the character for their skills, but also for their so-called class mechanics. So in Diablo 4, every class, besides having unique skills, of course, will also have their own specific class mechanic. For example, with the Necromancer having a Book of the Dead, which allows you to, as you can see here, customize your minions in different ways. Whereas the sorceress has an enchantment system which allows them more passive ability slots. The barbarian with their arsenal system, which is the ability to equip 4 different types of weapons at once and assign different skills to each weapon, or vice versa. And then the rogue has a mechanic where they can learn a different type of a skill or specialization. So you can actually have different types of rogues as well, either combo point focus, exploit weakness, or shadow realm, with each having their unique mechanic. And as for the druid, not much is known about their class mechanic just yet. We do know that a lot of their abilities have crushing blow last I checked, which takes off percentages of enemies' health, which can be very helpful for things like bosses and high health enemies to synergize with, say, even other characters. But as for their own unique class mechanic, that'll have to wait until the open beta. Anyhow, for those 2 weekends, I'm definitely going to try to not only determine the playstyles that I enjoy the most, but also after I do so, try to hone in on how I can optimize those builds in preparation for the live game. And next, for even more optimization to prepare for launch, and on to number 2 on our list, we have familiarizing yourself with the zone that is available and all the nooks and crannies of it, seeing as the open world will actually not be randomized and be static, meaning that you can actually map it out and know where things are, which will actually be very important as this actually matters to character progression and power. Being that, first of all, you actually gain something called renown for each zone. So by knowing where everything is to be able to complete, so to speak, not only explore, but also pick up all the, complete the dungeons and do the strongholds that are available in the fractured peaks. You actually can level up your renown with the zone, which gives you permanent power as well as experience boosts across all of your characters. And so knowing where everything is, which also includes the so-called altars of Lilith, which not only contributes further to your renown, but also of themselves give your characters across your account, again, a stat boost, will likely allow you to get things done faster when the game launches, to then give yourself that head start with the additional player power as well as experience boosts. And last but not least, at number 1, which is sort of an extension of number 2, and that is to really familiarize yourself as best as you can with all the different types of systems that the game has to offer. And this again serves to not only help you gauge whether Diablo 4 is actually for you and perhaps how fun it'll be, but also if you're already planning on playing the game, can definitely help you get a head start on the live game if you're already familiar with a lot of these systems, like not only in terms of the character progression, like skill trees and paragon boards that I've begun to mention, but also with things like crafting, especially how items drop, different types of item affixes, monster types, monster affixes, and how encounters feel and work, and whether they feel actually fun. And even though it doesn't really seem like we'll be able to experience much, if any, of the endgame systems at all, like Hell Ties, the Tree of Whispers, PvP, and Nightmare Dungeons, as well as any of the seasonal stuff, there should still be plenty of content to explore and to get a good feel of the game with. And those are my top 5 tips for getting the most out of your beta experience. Let me know if you have anything else you'd like to add in the comment section below. I'll definitely reply to your comment. And if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel for more cutting edge guides just like this one. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.